there's this one scene with Gon where he was trying to hunt Hisoka and he unintentionally used Zetsu. And I think for me, that was like, holy fuck, what is that? That looks so sick. And then even Hisoka, I think Hisoka didn't even notice him when he was being hunted by Gon. And it actually is kind of smart on, you know, how Gon is learning on how to hunt other people. And you know, this kid, you know, like he's been hunting animals when he was first introduced. And you know, when it comes to like the hunter exam, he was kind of challenged into this situation where, yo, how can I hunt Hisoka's badge without really getting noticed? And that was like, holy fuck, that was so sick. And now, like, oh, you know, based on how Nen and Haki is kind of similar, I've always found Haki to have more similarities when it comes to Nen rather than any of the power system in a lot of shonen. The main reason why I'm bringing the Zetsu thing was because of how Haki also has this type of mechanic. Every single human has this presence. In Hunter x Hunter, everybody has presence. Everybody has this power called Nen. And it's just up to you to unlock these abilities on your own, either through the help of your talent or brute forcing it. But the thing with Haki is very different, because when it comes to Haki, you can't, it's kind of hard. Maybe it's similar. Maybe you can brute force someone to open their ability to use Haki, but that's a different conversation, right? So everybody has a presence. And in One Piece, it's similar. It's the same, because when there's a one scene with Fujitora where Fujitora literally can feel everybody's presence when they were running and trying to save Luffy from him. Even though these people don't know how to use Haki, like, you know, like he can sense all of them, you know? So I'm kind of wondering, like, was there any technique that Oda introduced in the story that is similar to Zetsu? And maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe there is something. Maybe I missed it. But so far, I don't think there's any Haki technique or, I think, Devil Fruit ability. Well, I don't know about Devil Fruit ability, but like anything that can extinguish someone else's presence. I don't think there's an ability where you can just do that, you know? Where it's similar to what Zetsu can do. Because observation Haki is something that you activate on your own. It's not a passive ability, you know? I think when it comes to Nen, it's automatic. You can feel someone's fucking presence right away. But when it comes to One Piece, it's not really. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like observation as a passive ability. How can someone extinguish their presence in the story? And I was like really wondering, because this is the thing that Gunko said to Shamrock: extinguish your presence. You know, when I was reading that, I was head scratching myself, because when the fuck did Oda ever introduce a thing like that, you know? And then now I remembered, no, before we get into all that, I was also wondering if in the fights in One Piece, especially when Haki is involved, did you notice something that's actually missing? And I feel like, to me, this is a really on point thing that I kind of noticed when I was reading about Kaido versus Luffy, and a lot of fights really in regards to One Piece. There's no such thing as feints in One Piece. When you think about it, like when you actually read a fight, right? No one's really doing any feints, you know? And maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe there are some cases, but I've never seen feints being used in One Piece. And that was the one thing that I was looking for, but don't really know what that was. Like, I was like, there's something missing whenever I read a One Piece fight. And this is it. This was it. Feints don't exist, you know? And I am not gonna add the anime fights here, because in the anime there was a feint. There was an example of feint, and that was when Garp versus Kuzan were happening, where it's that one fucking scene where there's a lot of dust and Garp threw a fucking rock instead, you know, and Kuzan attacked that shit, and then Garp came in. But the thing is, it doesn't make any sense. because observation haki is a thing. How can you get like, you know how like feints not being a thing in a fight kind of makes sense, because you know you can't really hide your presence when someone else can use observation haki, you know? So like I was wondering, so like in the fight in the anime, it's kind of inconsistent because it can't really do feints in any fight in One Piece. So like that makes total sense. But then I was like really confused because there's this one thing about Gunko that apparently you can extinguish your presence, and I was wondering how can you even do that when someone else can use observation haki, right? And then there's this one scene in God Valley when Garp and Roger were talking. There's this one scene where they were talking, and I think it was Roger. I don't know. I think it was Roger or Garp. I think it was Garp. Garp said that the attacks of Roger is not really working against Zebek because Zebek was also using Conqueror's haki on his attacks. Therefore, the attacks were kind of canceling each other out. Zebek was using his armament and Conquerors as a defense in order for him to cancel Roger's attack, right? And so like if things like this exist when it comes to canceling each other out and shit like that, then this is just my guess, okay? This is just my fucking guess. So let's make it simplistic, right? Let's make it simplistic. When someone's looking for you, how do you actually hide, right? How do you hide from that someone? So there's two things you can do to hide yourself. First one is to look for a hiding spot. You have to look for a hiding spot in order for you to not get caught by someone. They can't see you. That means, you know, you actually hid yourself pretty well. And then there's another one where you blind them. You use solar flare like in Dragon Ball Z where they spam solar flare. And then, you know, like they don't, like, you attack their fucking vision in order for them to not see you. I feel like that's the thing. In order for you to hide your presence in One Piece, you have to cancel their observation haki. And now that I'm thinking about it, there's an SBS in Film Red where Shanks apparently has a title called Observation Killer, where he can kill someone else's observation haki. Now that's a really foreboding fucking thing, because like, why the fuck do you have to kill the observation haki? That means he's attacking someone else, right? So like, what if Shanks was canceling somebody else's observation haki while also pouring his Conqueror's haki into the observation haki? Now you might wonder, like, how the fuck does that work? I mean, to be fair, like when it comes to armament, you can also use Conqueror's haki to boost your armament. From my understanding, there's two ways. You use armament haki to coat yourself, and you can also use Conqueror's haki to coat yourself, kind of like a different type of thing. You can coat yourself with armament haki, and then Conqueror's haki will boost that coating in order for the armament haki to be more lethal. I don't know what it is when it comes to that, but I feel like when it comes to observation haki, we don't really know the effects yet if Conqueror's haki was mixed into observation haki, because you can't say that it's not possible, right? Like, why is it that when it comes to armament it's allowed, but when it comes to observation it's not allowed? You can't really fucking say that. So I think that's how you eradicate your presence against someone. You're actually getting a fucking sand and throwing that sand in their fucking eyeballs. And that's why they can't really feel your presence. And I think that's why, like, Shanks was able to kill someone else's observation and actually extinguish his presence. Maybe that's how Shamrock was doing it too. I'm not really entirely sure. You know? But it's really weird how, like, I don't know if like Oda forgot about it. I'm not too sure, but I really wish like he fucking gives us more information when it comes to haki in general. Like, not just Conquerors, but also observation and maybe armament too. Like, it needs more juice, man. It needs more juice. Anyway, this is not really a theory. It's just on my mind for a very long time. Maybe I'm wrong, okay? Maybe I'm fucking wrong. But anyway, bye.